Lemon did something very important in his interview.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kind for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. But you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to clap. And believe it or not, for sync-in purposes, I need to clap. Now, I'm telling you guys a little bit something about production, okay? So let's do it one more time. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the program. Welcome aboard. AVQ is in the house from Brooklyn, New York. Patrick Mackner is in the house from Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas, that is. E2247 is in the house, and we all know E2247 is from all over the place. Eric Hayes is in the house from Kingwood, Atascocita. Yvette Avery Herod, our beautiful Yvette, is in the house from Atlanta, Georgia. And AVQ is going to strain Madame Eyes. AVQ, if you weren't the stalwart researcher here for Politics Done Right, I could not possibly read all this stuff. All right. Okay. All right. This is going to be some speed reading, folks, but it's some good stuff. First one, Egberto image for the screen. What image do you have this time, my brother? Public trust in scientists and views in their roles on policy making. I think that's decent enough. That is decent enough, but it's shameful, but it's decent enough. All right, let's go ahead and put that on the screen for you. Let's go ahead and put it on the screen. Here it goes. This might be one of the saddest aspects of American culture that I've seen recently. The American people don't want policy matter experts to affect public policy. And after the pandemic, scientific understanding has become a partisan issue. Pew Research, overall 51% say scientists should take an advice role in public policy debates about scientific issues. By contrast, nearly as many as 48% say they should focus on establishing scientific facts and stay out of public policy debates. Americans also aren't convinced scientists make better policy decisions on science issues than other people. Just 43% think this is the case. You know, that comes from the fact that Donald Trump says, only I can solve it. A dumb, you know what, think he can solve it. No, science is a requirement. Roughly 9 in 10 Democrats and Democratic leading independents, 88%, express a great deal or fair amount of confidence in scientists to act in the public best interest. The share of Democrats with at least a fair amount of confidence in scientists is similar to a level seen prior to the pandemic. Republicans' views follow a different pattern. 2/3 of Republicans and Republican leaners say they have a great deal or a fair amount of confidence in scientists to act in the public's best interest. About a third, 34%, expressed distrust, saying they have too much or no confidence at all in scientists in April 2020. And 85% majority of Republicans said they had a great deal of fair amount of confidence in scientists, compared with just 14% who had little confidence. That's what we talk about. When we talk about what the right wing has done to its people is to make people dumb. To make people dumb. I repeat, make people dumb. That's the whole goal of Fudd. What's the name of the guy who was against critical race theory and all that kind of stuff? The goal is to make their followers dumb. Trump says it, and they've all said it. From Newsweek, Michael Rudden, Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz' investigation report could be made public. The House Ethics Committee had been investigating allegations that Gaetz was part of a scheme that led to the sex trafficking of a 17-year-old girl. In June, the committee said it was investigating whether Gates engaged in sexual misconduct and illicit drug use, accepted improper gifts, and sought to obstruct government investigation of his conduct. Gates has denied all wrongdoing. Representative Matt Gates' resignation from Congress came 2 days before the House Ethics Committee was to vote on releasing a highly damaging report outlining its investigation into Republican, according to multiple sources familiar with the probe. The committee planned to vote Friday on releasing the report. Ethics loses its jurisdiction over Gates when he leaves Congress. The secretive panel has been investigating Gates on, off since 2021. President-elect Donald Trump announced that he would nominate Gates for Attorney General on Wednesday. Yep, and two thugs. Egberto, a long one from Ben Dominici, a former Fox News contributor, editor at The Spectator. Please pardon the rough language, but I asked it be read in full. I won't read the rough language, however. I realize that we're occasionally given to hyperbole about the untoward nature of politicians, but let me be clear. Matt Gaetz is a sex trafficking, drug addicted piece of shit. He's abhorrent. His eyes are permanently rimmed with the red rings of chemical boosters. In person, he smells like overexposed Axe body spray and stale Astroglide. The fact that he boasted on the floor to multiple colleagues in the House of Representatives of his methods of crushing Viagra and high test Red Bull to maintain his erection through his orgastic evenings is perhaps the least offensive of many crimes against womanhood and Christian faith. The man has less principle than your average fentanyl addicted hobo. He likes them underage and he's not ashamed about it. Matt Gaetz isn't just your average extreme Florida MAGA man. He's a hypocritical AWSS with the worst Botox money can buy, pursuing an ever thinning nose and higher cheekbones at every opportunity, like a real housewife uh, gone mad for fillers. Every Republican in Washington has had an opinion about Matt Gaetz, and 99% of those opinions are keep Matt Gaetz away from my wife, daughter, friend, and anyone I care about. He's a walking genital warts included as a bonus. If I was merely attempting to count the number of women I know who have had bad experiences with Matt Gaetz, I would run out of fingers and toes. If you vote for him to be Attorney General of the United States, you don't just need your head examined, you need to be committed to a mental institution. The man is absolutely vile. There are pools of vomit and more to offer the earth than this STD riddled testament to the failure of fallen masculinity. Let's just deal with the facts. Did Matt Gaetz transport an underage woman across state lines with state intent of her having sex with him and his friends? Yes. Did he later claim to Tucker Carlson that this woman did not exist? Yes. Does this conflict with the fact that one of his closest friends was convicted of having sex with this underage woman to pay? Yes. Are Gates and his RG friends attempting to destroy the records, images, videos, etc. from this sex party to protect his political future? Yes. Does this matter to Republicans who can say Donald J. Trump has the best judgment in politics? Of course, he would never name a sex trafficking drug addled line philanderer of, you know what, to be Attorney General of the United States simply to avoid investigation. Or would he? Here's the real deal. Matt Gaetz is in line for how we assess the Republican Party. If they're truly a cult of personality beholden to Donald Trump in ways that could not even imagine for a party that rejects cults and idol worship, they will approve his choice. But if they have a degree of independence, any kind of free thought, mindful of the fact that a presidency is 4 years, but your career is over, they will reject this choice so emphatically that it sends a very simple, straightforward message. You can be absolutely dirtbag wannabe pimp pounding DICK pills and caffeine while you film your girlfriend twerking on the gram, or you can be a Republican. The choice is yours. And that was placed. Let me put the, well, you have the link in there already. That is sad, but it is sad. Yeah, it is sad. Okay. All right, let's see what else. Below are the Gaza stats for day 409. War do not include Palestinian territories or the West Bank. Day 409, Ward, 43,923 Gazans killed. Uh, that's a shame. 147,820 casualties. That's equivalent to 361 per day for 13.4 months, an estimated 2.3 million population. That's equivalent to 6.4% of the Gaza population, with 43,922 Gazan killed, 107 per day, and 69% are kids. Shameful, yes. What can we do about it? Well, we already lost our opportunity to do anything about it as America made its vote, and many of you didn't vote. So here we go. Um, let's see. Lee Grant is in the house. Welcome aboard, Lee Grant. Carl Cox is in the house. Carl Cox, if you want to talk, you can always give us a phone call live here on air. That if you want to make some comments or talk about the program, my dear Carl Cox, you can call the telephone number that we have here, 281-823-7747. Let's see what else we have here. Michael Rudnin says, Egberto, that source, not the image. I saw the source. All right, let's see what else we got here. Pew Research. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Let's see if we can get that on the thing. There we go. And that's the image right there. All right, let's continue with the call here. Let's see. Michael Rudnin says, guy against critical race here. There's a lot of them. Lee Grant says, the left don't like science for people like Jason. No, the left is actually for science. May Wood is in the house. May Wood from Long Beach, California. Lee Grant from uh, uh, Montgomery County. Let's see. What else have we got here? I'm scrolling down to see what else I have to say before I go to the interview that we have scheduled for today. I'm about to start that interview right now. Mike Cisak says, sadly, the Senate GOP voted to pass all Biden's horrible constitutional break-in candidates. Don't see why the Dems should vote for Trump's candidates. If you think Matt Gaetz is Mike Cisak, do you think Matt Gaetz is a good candidate to have there? Let's just answer that question. Do you think that he upholds the laws of the office? But anyhow, let's go with the video for today. Welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Willies, your host. Today, I'm honored to speak with Dr. Omekongo Dibinga. He's an upstander. His life mission is to inspire all across the globe to take a stand when they witness an injustice, no matter how small or large. A John Maxwell Team top 30 speaker. He's an international speaker, trilingual poet, TV talk show host, rapper, and professor of intercultural communication at American University, where he also serves as a faculty affiliate to the Anti-Racist Research and Policy Center. He is the author of Lies About Black People, How to Combat Racial Stereotypes and Why It Matters. Buenos dias, señor. Omekongo Dibinga. How you doing, my brother?
I'm great, bro. How are you?
I am great. Look, it's an honor speaking to you. I remember our early days back at CNN iReports when I think we got a little bit too hot for our britches, that it kind of slowly went down because it was too substantive compared to the milk toast thing that they were doing at the station. But how have you been?
I've been good, man. We were killing it, back in those days, man. It was a lot of fun. It's great to see everything you've done with your own platform. But I just been plugging along, raising kids and teaching kids, traveling the world and trying to create more communities where everybody can be celebrated and not tolerated, which clearly is needed now more than ever. But yeah, it's going well down in DC. Still running my wife and I still running our yoga studios, prioritizing wellness because, you got to put your mask on first and take care of yourself before you go do this work, and it's taking it day by day.
Now, Dr. Dibinga, let me ask you this. Tell us a little bit about yourself first. Who are you?
Yes, well, as was said, my name is Omekongo, and that says who I am within itself. My parents are both from Congo, former Zaire, and that's where my name came from. I was named after the person who saved my grandfather's life as a child, and it was a great warrior in our village. I was born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts. My parents made their way to the United States in the 60s and ultimately moved around and settled at Boston, where they got their doctorates from Harvard and taught there for a while. So I was born in Cambridge, and they did a lot of activism, Pan-Africanist. That's how I was raised. So I grew up with my 8 siblings in Boston. Graduated high school, spent the year at Morehouse, transferred to Georgetown. Really got a love and a passion for international affairs, and that's kind of what my academic work has led to. So did my undergrad there, master's at Fletcher School, and did my doctorate in international education policy. And that was a great place for me because it allowed me to merge my interest in international affairs, also being a teacher. I did education policy, but also I did my doctorate on Jay-Z because I'm also a rapper and a spoken word artist. So I was able to, and I did my doctorate on him. So I was able to combine all my loves there. And, since then I pretty much stayed in DC, raising my 3 kids, like I said, and traveling the world, trying to create more upstanders and not bystanders. My company's called Upstander International. And so we do consulting and, speaking and leadership training on how to create more upstanders and not bystanders.
I think the first time, we did a whole lot of I reports. I don't know. I think I have quite a few hundred of them under my belt as well as you do. And we had
Mhm.
some page counts out of this world. I would consider us some of the most serious ones that used any platform that we could get to
Oh,
promote
yeah.
social justice, etc. And that is what I've seen you doing throughout your career in all that you do. But first and foremost, let me first tell you that I think teaching is the ultimate profession in this world, the most important profession, and I don't think it gets enough credit that it should in this country. Where you're from, where I am from, Panama originally, you from
Mhm.
Congo. It's amazing because again, we revere teachers in those lands, unlike what it is here. What do you think? Do you think some of the malaise that we see in the country today, some of the miseducation, the ease with which people can be ill-informed, misinformed, and disinformed, is a result of us not having um, the, the right respect for the teaching profession?
Well, what I would argue is that there's so much respect for the teaching profession and fear, which is why it's under attack.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
I
Because
like that narrative. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Because
yeah.
that's the first group that people are going for. And as somebody who does work in schools, public schools, private schools, charter schools, I when I look at these attacks, I have a whole chapter in my book on critical race theory, and I notice that in these schools, they're not coming for the gym teachers. They're not coming for,
The
even some of
coaches.
yeah, the coaches. They're not coming for building services. All of these people whose, professions are important. They're going for the people who teach history. They're going for the people who can, transplant knowledge to our kids. And so and of course, who else are they targeting in the schools? The librarians. So they are targeting the people with the most knowledge. They're trying to take over the school board. They're bringing these racist folks to the school boards and all of that. And so because of the importance that teachers have in our society, they're not just being ignored, they're being attacked. And if you look at what's happening in our society right now, much of what is happening has to do with what we have not been allowed to teach in our schools. Look at, we haven't had civics in schools for like 30 years plus.
Hmm.
And so you got people saying things like, oh, Vice President Harris needs to change the role and what happens in Gaza and things like that, not knowing that the vice president has no role to play and can't go against the president. They think that the president can just make laws. Yeah, they can do executive orders, but laws. There's this whole thing called Congress. There's this whole thing called the House of Representatives, and like kids and just don't know these things, and therefore adults don't know these things, and so they look at all these individuals as the guys holding all the power, and it's this guy, it's that guy, and because of that lack of education, that's a huge problem. And then we have to obviously talk about things like book bans, where over 10,000 books were, have been put on the ban list, last year, more to come. So people fear education. As we both know, it's one of the first places that dictators go for. They go to take over the media and they go to challenge the intellectuals. And so we have to bring that back. We have to raise kids that are intellectually curious. We have to become intellectually curious as a society. And we have to embrace all forms of history as opposed to trying to deny it.
Now, by the way, has your book been banned yet?
Not yet, not yet, not
Well,
yet.
it's about to, right?
I'm sure it's coming.
It's coming. Now, given that, and I don't want to get directly into the election right now, I want to more concentrate on the disinformation that is out there.
Sure.
I see. I love the work that you're doing. Okay, I follow your TikToks, and I like how you came out and gave the whole rundown on the election. I like how, but you haven't only done that on the election, you've done that on a whole lot of other things. TikTok is a platform that they're trying to take away. What do you think about it as a teaching tool?
Well, I'm a little bit nervous about all of these social media platforms because, one of the things we have to be mindful of is that, we use them and they're important, but they're also not controlled by, when you look at something like Twitter, not controlled by somebody who's from the United States. I believe he's a citizen now. But then you look at TikTok, it's the same thing. And, one of the things we have to be mindful of, and look, the US platforms are not any better, Facebook and so on and so forth, but we have to be mindful of who controls the information. And why am I seeing things like Joe Rogan on my Twitter feed and I don't follow him in any way, shape, or form? And I do believe that, TikTok has the ability to make sure that certain things they don't want to see, are suppressed on many ways. Sometimes I look at some of these videos and I'm like, how is like this going viral, but this isn't? Not even just from me. Like I haven't had any viral TikTok videos, but I'm saying like even some people who have viral TikTok videos, you go and look at some of their other stuff, which might be more profound, and they're going like nowhere, right? So I'm like, how does that really work? But I do think at the end of the day, it is important for us, like people like you and me, to be on TikTok, because since a lot of our kids, or not a lot of our kids, a lot of people are getting their news from social media, it's important that we are getting into those feeds. People who have real information, real knowledge, can fact check things, can provide differing opinions, and I'm seeing people engage with you, and I'm seeing engagement with me as well from people who might be going to other places. So I believe that wherever there is an information platform, we have to have a presence there. And so my opinion on like TikTok is not like the same as like the US government, because, competition from China and all of the other type of stuff, I think that that's real for them. But as it relates to spreading proper information, we have to jump into these spaces and be engaged. And that's what I'm doing.
Well, and you're doing a great job at it. Let's talk a little bit about the election. What went wrong that allowed a misogynist, a thief, a thug, a person who lied about a university he never created, a rapist, and you can go on and on with probably 20 different things that he did wrong. How can people who have professed to be law and order folks, who profess to be the moral part, like to call themselves the moral party, how could we possibly, as a country, have elected a Donald Trump again?
Well, as I said across all of my platforms, TikTok and YouTube and all of these places, America'd. That's it in short. The fact of the matter is, Donald Trump ran a campaign that only a white man could run. He ran on the parents of racism and misogyny. It's a same-sex marriage. It's two males. He ran on those things. Look, they say that Kamala Harris ran on identity politics. She couldn't have run farther away from her identity because she wasn't allowed to. But Donald Trump was the one who said, "Look at me and my beautiful white skin." What's more identity politics than that? Donald Trump also ran on the politics of misogyny in terms of abortion, and I ended it. Everybody wanted it ended, and I'm proud to have done it. This idea that I'm gonna, machismo. This idea I'm gonna protect you no matter what. Like those types of things. That's at the core of America. Look, as much racism as we've experienced in this country, black men still got the right to vote before white women did. So the misogyny is deep, and so Obama had the racism, but he didn't have the misogyny. Hillary Clinton had the misogyny. She still won the popular vote, but she still didn't win overall because of the Electoral College, right? What did Shirley Chisholm say in the 1970s? That it was harder for her to run as a woman than it was for her to run as a black person. Yeah. And that was in the 70s. So, look, an Asian person couldn't get up there and say, "Look at my beautiful skin," right? Black, Vivek couldn't do that. So Trump ran on that. A woman couldn't get up there and be like, "Oh, I love men. I'm going to protect them no matter what." Only a man can do that, right? And so he put those together. And he created a campaign of addition versus subtraction, from our coalition. And then the fact of the matter is, we got to be real about this, Egberto, is that this country was not ready to elect a black woman. A
Hmm.
lot of people who said that they were going to be down of her, these Republicans and the like, they lied. And then he also took advantage of the racism that exists between, people who are black and people who are of Latino descent as well. And that hate that exists between us. There were some who just said, I will just never vote for a woman. Some would just never vote for a black woman. And so he took advantage of, he didn't have a multi-months head start on Kamala Harris. He had a 248-year head start
I
on
love
Vice
that. Yeah.
President Harris. And if you go back to 1619, even longer than that. And he played on all of that. And that's how we got to where we are today.
It is sad because I know even with Obama, I wrote an article at the Daily Kos a few years back after Hillary Clinton lost, and I pointed out that it is interesting that not even that I pointed out that just what you said, that misogyny and sexism, I don't like to do the comparison, but many a times it overpowers racism.
Yeah.
And I think once again, we see it, and then people want to make this election as if it is something that Kamala did. And I wrote an article on my Substack recently that said, this isn't about Kamala Harris at all. This is about America, and we have to wake up to this altogether. Now, do you think this is going to put a pause on any party trying to get a woman elected?
I fear that, and that is the problem. I feel like, she should run again. And people's like, oh, well, she didn't have time to do primaries. All right, go do the primaries. Like, see what happens. And I believe that the Democratic Party should keep putting up a woman until America is made to be ready for her. Look, you can't undo hundreds of years of misogyny with two electoral cycles with a woman at the top of the ticket. That's
Hmm.
just not how it works in our society. And like other countries have had women presidents, and then like some of them have, systems where, they have to be certain levels of representation of women, and there are disagreements with that. But it allows women to be put in people's face as potential political leaders so that when they get to the top, people are like, okay, we've been dealing with this for a while. But I do believe that in this next cycle for the Democrats, there's not going to be a woman at the top of the ticket. But let's add another part to this. Like, what does it mean for our society where somebody who has such a beautiful background as Vice President Harris and somebody who is white, like Hillary Clinton, both have to pick white males as their running mate? And let's add Barack Obama to that. Both Hillary and Harris went with two white men named Tim. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like,
Yeah.
that idea that you have to do this to appeal to this group, and it couldn't be a gay man, couldn't be Pete Buttigieg,
Right.
couldn't be the, Jewish guy, couldn't be Josh Shapiro because she would have been looked at as, too Jewish.
Oh,
So she,
Let me tell you, Omekongo, you are one of the few that actually realized
Mhm.
that the reason Shapiro couldn't have, even though Shapiro is the best guy. Oh no, Donald Trump would have made mincemeat out of that ticket.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And again, that's identity politics at its best.
Yes.
So Kamala had to pick a white cisgendered male who represents Midwestern values to be on her ticket. Why couldn't she run with two women? Why couldn't she have like Wes Moore? Why couldn't she have a Ruben Gallego? Because that's what, because we also have to have a conversation about the Democratic consulting class and the
Oh
people
boy.
there,
Yes.
what I'm saying, who
Yeah.
they say need to be there. And I'm saying that we need to take over the party and we need to shatter that. So if we get two women who run together as the candidates, if we get a white person and a black, like whatever it is, the status quo has got to go. But I feel like if they keep this same Democratic consulting class, we are going to have a white man at the top of the ticket in 2028. And that is going to be extremely problematic if they do it because of their
Hmm.
traditional views. If people win the primaries and so on and so forth, that's of course fine. But in terms of who we say needs to be there, people always saying people like the governor of California or
Or Kentucky.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
they're
yeah,
up on Kentucky right now.
that's what I'm saying. Andy Bashir and all of these guys are just like, nah, we need to keep coming back hard. We got to take over this party.
I had a call. We were talking from the president of a healthcare for all organization yesterday, and that's what we were talking about. And I told him that progressive stayed quiet during this election. There's a whole lot that occurred during this election that we were supposed to speak up again about, but we never wanted to be accused of the one bringing down the ticket, and
Yep.
we held our tongues. We held our tongues.
Mhm.
And now I think it is time that our tongues be held no more.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of us, did come back. We were upset with like, why is she embracing, the Liz Cheneys and stuff of the
Right.
world, and because her consultant said you got to build a broad coalition, and people saying she's running away from the base. And I'll be honest, like I didn't really feel like she was running from away from the base at honestly, because she was still in black churches, she was
Hmm.
still doing, she was doing black media, not enough, but she did a lot of black media outlets, a lot of black. I mean, so I'm not gonna say not enough. She did a lot. There were some places I wish she went to as well,
Hmm.
but I feel like at the end of the day, folks who were on the, one of the reasons she lost was because not because of the turnout for Trump, it was our turnout.
Didn't show. But
Yeah.
but let me tell you something about that because I've researched some of that, and a lot of our no shows was the targeted marketing done by the Trump to different demographics, telling Palestinians she's anti-Palestinians, telling
Yes.
Jews she's anti-Jew, and some people who would never vote for Donald Trump, they didn't vote for Donald Trump, but they didn't vote at all.
And that is, look, that's one of my challenge with the level of sophistication of those of us
Yes.
who, people who identify as progressives or so-called progressives. When I think about the uncommitted movement,
Hmm.
I'm like, that you all would not see what Trump had in mind. The guy literally said that Gaza it's great beachfront property.
Hmm.
And if we have the political sophistication needed to understand that vice presidents will make decisions, you at least put in the person that you have the chance of influencing the most. Now,
Right.
look, I think it was not cool for like a Palestinian person or someone who's like pro Gaza, to not be at the DNC, and we can talk about those things. But it's like Bernie Sanders says, it's like, okay, yeah, we can talk about Netanyahu being a war criminal and stuff, but we still have to get in somebody who we could possibly pressure. And when I look at people like Rashida Tlaib and all of those folks, pulling back, look, I get it. But again, this is about options. And now you got a guy who's going to be the ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, who said there's no such thing as a Palestinian.
Hmm. Yeah.
The guy who's going to be the U.S. ambassador, the Israeli ambassador to the United States, currently lives in the West Bank. And so
Right.
the lack of, strategic, and I get it, we're hurt, we're feeling, and then, you're listening to a guy who just was lying to you about what he was going to do, and you decide to stay home for that, or you decide to go for a Jill Stein, who only appears when there's a woman candidate on running for office because she didn't run in 2020, and
Hmm.
you vote for a guy who sat at the table with Vladimir Putin. Like that lack of sophistication, Trump actually took advantage of that. Look, my family's Congolese. Like I've been dealing with genocide in the Congo, and a lot of part of it supported by a lot of the U.S. policy. So I've seen it firsthand what happens when this U.S. government is part of policies that is destroying your own country. So I'm sympathetic to that, and even with that, I'm still voting for Harris because we can pressure her to do. And I feel like her policy
Right.
would be
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. Look, that is important. I mean, after all, Bush bombed my country, to bomb Panama City, Colon, and David. Killed 10,000 Panamanians. They don't claim it, but killed 10,000 Panamanians. I still understand you have to separate country policy and person running. I spoke to Mark Thompson. I
Yeah.
interviewed him at Net Roots, and we were
Hmm.
talking about the same thing you talk about. It is time for us to start pushing the envelope, and I think coming now, starting now, I think progressives have to leave and you tell me if you agree or not. I think we have to leave the constraints of the Democratic Party for those who have held their tongues. And I think now that the Democratic Party is in flux, it is time for the progressives not to fall back on the who they wanted, Rahm Emanuel. They're talking about throwing Rahm Emanuel as the leader of the DNC. It's time for us to speak up and not only speak up but take over. Your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. And, sometimes with this whole thing of, progressives, sometimes I call them so-called progressives because some of these white, progressives are the type who have that diversity fatigue and, don't really want to be as inclusive as they claim to be because they see so many of us rising, the Westmores of the world, the AOCs of the world, the Rashida Tlaibs of the world. And so I believe we do have to take over. We do have to, from the ground up, we have to challenge the consulting class. There's a lot of folks who are in these consulting classes Roland Martin was talking about this. Some of these organizations just opened up like this year and got these consulting contracts and the like. And so we got to get in. We got to get on the ground game. We can't think about 2026 2028 because we got the midterms in 2026. And there's a lot of work we can do locally if we start to say this is what we want. And look, we got the vote. You know what I'm saying? In terms of we got numbers in terms of young people. There's going to be a whole slew of new voters who are going to be coming in over the next few years. And so, yeah, this is the time not to withdraw. And I'm getting so upset, Alberto, because I'm seeing all of these, oh, I'm done. I'm going to go chill for the next 4 years. Oh, y'all can have it. I'm just going to be sitting my popcorn, all this other type of stuff. It's like now is the time to get engaged. Roe v. Wade ended because right after Roe v. Wade was ushered in, these folks who are anti-abortion, they started then. They were having rallies every year, protests every year down in Capitol Hill. There would be like 10 of them. But it was like, we're going to stay the course. Our impatience is part of the problem. It's part of the reason why they get over. Because if Biden doesn't do something now, if Harris doesn't do something now, then it's like, all right, well, we're done. We're washing our hands. And that is part of our complacency is part of the reason we got here. If we got the same amount of votes that Biden had for Harris, she's the president now.
Yeah, by a landslide.
By a landslide.
And look, we're talking for Roe v. And this is what I explained on my KPFT show, 90.1 FM. I told them, look, it took 50 years for them to overthrow Roe v. Wade. Some of the people who started the attempt to overthrow it are dead.
Yep.
The movement continued. That is what those of us that claim to be progressive need to do. We need to stay with the movement. We keep having these lapses. Obama came in and we went to sleep. It was like, no, you can't sleep on Obama. You have to push Obama. That's right. Biden came in. We didn't quite go to sleep on Biden, actually, because again, if you take a look at the policies Biden put out there, was a hell of a lot more progressive than Obama. The closest one is Roosevelt. But that said, we have to stay engaged. But Omekongo, I can't. We have to talk a little bit about that thing behind you, lies about Black people. Why did you write that book?
I wrote the book because I felt like coming out of 2020, the book came out in 2023. I felt like coming out of 2020, there were a lot of people who, especially like non-Black people, especially white people, were saying, okay, I was at the rallies, I shouted Black Lives Matter, but what do I need to do to go deeper? How do I challenge what I know more? And so I wrote this book to challenge the lies that have been told, because once you challenge the lies, then you can work towards policies that embrace the truth. But something was interesting when I was doing this, Egberto, is that I went online and said to people, tell me the lies that you were told about Black people. And I expected the majority of people to respond to not be Black, but the majority of people who responded were Black people. And so they were talking about lies that, we were told Black people can't swim, Black people don't go to college and all of that. So the book is about anybody who needs to challenge the lies. The book is, each chapter deals with a particular issue relating to a lie, lies about Black people being more prone to be criminals, about education, about the history of housing, about Black people and images in the media. I go back to that. I have a chapter on artificial intelligence and how racist that is. I also infused the book with interviews with people who are on their anti-racist journey, people of diverse backgrounds. I also, of course, infuse it with some of my own poetry as well. If you ever want to hear some, just let a brother know. And then there are activities that people can do in the book as well on their anti-racist and what I would also call pro-equity journey. And so that's what the book is about. People can learn more about that at liesaboutblackpeople.com.
Liesaboutblackpeople.com. I'll have that in the accompanying blog that will come with the program. So, Senor Dr. Omekongo, what would you have liked me to ask you, talk about, or anything that I didn't? I mean, that's always my last question. If you ever heard my interviews before.
Mm-hmm. The most important thing that you could ask me is, what happens next?
What happens next?
What happens next is, number one, we take a deep breath and retreat into taking care of ourselves. We have to look at our habits that are preventing us from fully engaging. As somebody who, as a news consumer, like probably the majority of my waking hours, I decided, for example, I have to stop doing that. I have to make sure that my news consumption is minimized. I have to make sure that I'm getting my sleep. I have to make sure that I'm getting my rest, that I'm getting my exercise, that I'm checking on my diet. Because look, These guys, many of these guys, in my opinion, are going to try to take us out on many levels, whether it's, physically, whether it's through changing our platforms, destroying our platforms, whether it's through investigations, incarceration, whatever it is. But the least thing, but we can't take ourselves out. And so the more we take care of ourselves, the better we are going to be engaged in this fight. When Dr. King was assassinated, he was 39 years old, but he had the heart of a 60-year-old when they did the autopsy because of the stress of the movement. So we have to take care of ourselves. What next is we have to re-engage in our communities. A lot of people who are mad at what happened can't tell you who their city councilor is, can't tell you who their state representatives are, can't tell you anything beyond possibly who their senator is. And so we have to re-engage that way. The fight has not stopped. We had a night to be mad, but we have to stay engaged. If not, look, I'm not convinced. I am convinced that Trump is going to try to stay in office for a third term. I do believe that. And he's got the cronies to help usher that in. He even said that when he went and talked to folks at the
Yeah.
House. And he's not joking. People have to realize when you study history, he is not joking. And so before you know it, it's going to be like, oh, shoot, what happened? And so at the end of the day, they say those are those people who make things happen, those people who watch things happen, and those people who wake up and say, what just happened? Which one are you going to be?
Dr. Omekongo Dibinga, thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right. Folks, you can find, wait a minute, isn't your website also omekongo.com as well?
Omekongo.com, upstanderinternational.com, they lead to the same places, and liesaboutblackpeople.com is a subset on that website as well. But people can also subscribe to youtube.com/Omekongo and all the social media platforms, just my first name, @Omekongo.
Well, all of that will be in the lead as well as in the blog that corresponds to this interview. Thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Thank you.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that, but I want to touch on something from Brother Lee Grant, because this shows what ignorance can do to you, especially when accompanied by disinformation. And I say this with respect, Lee Grant, but I want to point out something that you said, and it's important, and I want you, Lee Grant, to listen to what I'm going to say, and then I want you to come back to me and tell me if you understood what I said and understand why you were completely ill-informed, disinformed actually. I want you to admit that. So here we go. Your statement was Kamala was seen as inauthentic. Of Indian descent, she was blackfaced by the MSM, the mainstream media, and the DNC, the Democratic National Committee. No one bought it. Okay, first of all, I can't tell you how uninformed that statement is completely because of the following. Kamala Harris, when it was time to choose her university, she chose to go to Howard University. All right. My daughter got her, studied her for her medicine. She got her doctor's, medicine at Howard University, the most prestigious black university in the country. That's where she went. Okay, number one. Most Americans don't know that because, again, like I said, it's a country that cares little about people that have melanin. So they don't care about these things. Only progressives in general would have known things like that. Secondly, Mr. Grant, she didn't only go to the university, but she was an AKA. The fraternity she joined is one of the most prominent black sorority, one of the most prominent black sororities. You don't join a black sorority. You don't join a black sorority if there is a conflict of who you are. If you ever know what the AKA stands for, again, your statement was made out of ignorance generated by the disinformation you got from the mainstream media and from your right-wing media. So again, her race and how she identifies should never been an issue if the population of America wasn't so ill-informed that they didn't know that Howard University is the most prominent black university, that also she joined the AKA as a youngster at the university, the Alpha Kappa Alpha, which is the most prominent black sorority, and that in her work, in her work, she has always, including with her dad, been an activist in black causes, black domination, black justice, etc. But again, what the disinformation was able to do is create, if you felt she was inauthentic because you thought she wanted to be, because she's an Indian trying to pass, then you are ill informed because of her life status. I'm spending some time on this to show you how disinformation works. You can choose to accept it, or you can choose to remain ignorant, right? As far as to fulfill your own personal prejudices. You have been informed about her lifespan, that there was never there she never denies her Indian or Indian background, but anybody who also knows Jamaican heritage also understand the level of Indians not only in Jamaica, but I'm talking about Indians from ethnic Indians from India, but also Panama and all these other places. Okay, I have a segment of that, and it's a very popular thing. Okay, so it's important that you understand you were disinformed. Now, it would be a good thing if you were to come and let it be known, my God, I learned something, and that disinformation will not work with me again. And if you don't do that, it says more about your own personal prejudices, that you need something to hold on to justify said prejudice. I just needed to say that. All right. Egberto, how did she? Let's see what else. Egberto, it was white patriarchal women who voted 52% for Trump. Exactly. I blame them. Exactly. I can just move on and start to resist his and his people ridiculous crap. MAGA will feel what he does as much as the rest of the country. Give it time. The legal group was caught off guard when he won in 2016, but with the Project 2025, they have been working for 2 years on 200. Exactly right. Free gift article. Let's see what that is. Liberal legal group positioned itself as a top Trump administration foe. Thank you for that link. Vidija, I have one more piece that I need to put out. This one is from CNN's Don Lemon, which will talk about some of this disinformation that our friends, like our friend Mr. Grant, falls for. I would like folks to start, after they've been enlightened, to say, oh my God, I can't believe I had to be taught this, because the side that I believe in lies to me so often. But anyway, let's go ahead and listen to Brother Don Lemon now. Don Lemon did something very important in his interview with Katie Fang today. And I think it is something that what a lot of folks who watch the mainstream media every day for their news, etc., I think it does a very important thing. First of all, it puts the mainstream media, it scolds the mainstream media to do what they need to do to free themselves up, meaning the news side of the mainstream media. But also it encourages the audience at large to really do something very important, and that is support independent media if what you want is unadulterated truth. I want you to listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Your streaming show is amazing. I catch you on IG Live as well. You're obviously an accomplished author, but I mean, how important is it then for independent media going into the second Trump presidency? Especially, for example, you clearly have left Twitter. You've left Elon Musk, gone to Blue Sky, for example. These are the digital town squares. So not only can people get their information here at the Katie Fang Show, but they can also get it from you and other independent media platforms. How critical is it to make sure that voice is allowed for you and others to be able to disseminate the facts, especially going into this next presidency?
Well, it's critical for us to get attention to those of us who are in digital media and may not have the platforms that, a Joe Rogan or whatever. But it's critical for us as journalists. It's tough in independent media to sell, quite frankly, journalism and politics. Advertisers don't like it. You know what I mean? They're afraid of, Republicans buy cereal or Democrats buy, and they're afraid of it, right? Remember what happened with Bud Light. But I think it's even more critical for people like you who are in corporate media to be able to be allowed to speak the truth, to speak truth to power, even when the folks above you, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps above you, all the way up to the owner of the corporation or the shareholders, when they may not agree with what you're saying, when they may want another narrative out there other than what you as a journalist should be putting out there. It's more important that we pay attention to that rather than, I think, independent media. I think independent media is going to do what they do because we don't have a corporate overlord. And we can basically say what we want to say. It's important to support independent media. It's important for the folks who are watching here, important for the people who just average everyday Americans to support. But I think it's more important that you, since you still do in this corporate media game that you still have a big influence. It's a waning influence. I'm going to be honest. We know that this was a streaming election, but still have the big influence that you are able to say what you want to say and what you think is right as a journalist. It is also important, I believe, for journalists who are still in corporate media to get rid of the false equivalency, just because some things are objectively bad. A lot of what Donald Trump offers, quite frankly, most of what he offers to America is objectively bad. And because you point that out, it doesn't mean you have to point out something that's bad about the other side because you feel that you need to give balance. That's false. And that's a disservice to the American people. And I think many journalists now feel that they have to do that. I also feel, and I know, that in the back of journalists' heads now, they are thinking, what is my boss going to say if I go in, if I'm tough on a Trump surrogate? Are they going to think that I'm being too harsh on someone unfairly? Are they going to be upset because the guys at the top they want to survive in a business environment under a Trump administration? So I believe the problem, if you really want me to tell you, I believe the problem with corporate media now is that there is no wall between the journalists and the folks on the business end. Journalism should not be about the folks on the business end. They should leave the journalism to journalists, and the business folks should take care of the business and not rely on the newsrooms and the journalists for corporate profits.
Well, I'm proud to say that there is a wall here at the Katie Fang Show. And I, as Katie Fang, am listening to what I think is my true north, which is always facts and evidence, which is how I was trained.
Why it was so important, or it is so important for somebody like Don Lemon, who was a revered host at CNN, to come out and point out what he did, specifically that those in the corporate media, in the mainstream media, they have corporate overlords which restrict what they can say. He also points out that no longer is there a division between the media corporate side and the news, which used to be fairly independent and didn't have to care for how they delivered the news. That separation is no longer there. So he is urging implicitly that separation be there again. But most importantly, he encouraged the likes of Katie Fan to go out there and, in as much as it may give angst to the leaders on the top of the corporations, telling the truth all the time, that you must find a way to do it. Katie points out that, I do that. She points out that that is who she is. But what's important is we know the restrictions of the mainstream media. We know that they can't go too far to one side or the other. But we also know that when it comes to that one deep penetration, in other words, while we can have thousands of us in the independent media doing our work and getting, 50,000 people here, 20,000 here, 100,000 here, one of those shows on MSNBC can pick up at once 3 million, 10 million, whatever. So he urges them that in as much as the corporate overlords want you to restrict what you say, want to create that false equivalency between the left and the right, or false equivalencies between folks. If you challenge one, you're required to find some reason to challenge the other. You have to go against that urge for a false balance, for a false equivalency. I think that's important. I think what he said there is so important. And luckily, MSNBC is one of the few stations that rightfully do that. We have Fang that does it. We have Ali Velshi, who is a master of really figuring out how to tell the truth and not get dumped from the air like Madia San, if you will. And you also have Ayman Mohayadin, who figures out a way to let you know the truth, not necessarily in the absolute terms that it need to be said. Well, after all, you have the independent media to do that. But the fact that a former host at CNN will come out and first of all point out these deficiencies within the mainstream media, and then urge the support of independent media, and he himself now is a member of us all, a member of the independent media. I think it's a very important thing. Yes, it's a very important thing. Anyway, it's 4:00. I gotta go because I have another interview coming up in 10 minutes. So folks, I want to ask you to please support the program. To find out how to support it, I ask you so kindly to consider becoming a paid subscriber of our newsletter. That is at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. You become a paid subscriber. Every one of those books that you see scrolling on the screen right now, you get to read them all on our Substack platform. Please support the program. This is how we get real information so that we can educate those who have been misinformed, ill-informed, disinformed by the right-wing media and to some extent by the mainstream media. Anyway, I got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. Love you all. Thank you for being here. And you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.